Media Day was last week, and Kirby Smart in the news, Clint. In the news for two significant reasons. One, he getting paid. He going ahead and getting a lucrative new contract. And two, people are all up in arms that seem to think Kirby doesn't want anyone else to get paid. He wants all the money for himself because that's just the kind of guy that Kirby Smart seems to be. Let's talk about whether or not that's true here on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, welcome back. Locked On Bulldogs, part on Locked On Atlanta, as well as everything good and glorious with the Georgia program, because it's good to be a dog. We're going to dive into Media Day a little bit. Just to let you guys know, if you haven't heard of LinkedIn, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. You've now heard of them, Daniel.
We'll talk more about them, maybe.
We'll talk more about them.
Stay tuned.
Today's episode, 3 parts, and it really is the 3 different parts of Media Day availability. Kirby Smart said some things. He took some people with him. They said some things. Stet, SVP, it was a whole field. Nolan Smith out there saying some things, but Kirby in particular. We're going to talk about those quotes in each segment leading up to it. But Daniel, Gurf is back from Twitter, and he is caught up on the podcasts.
Oh, Gurf, welcome.
Ooh.
Welcome to today. It's nice to have you living in the moment.
It really is.
To have you, Weldon Brothers, shout out to the Weldon Brothers. Shout out to our legal counsel, Justin. Good to have you on. M-Dubs, do your job if you want to shout out. I don't know what to tell you. Do your job.
Have you ever seen a man keep his position longer for no reason whatsoever?
No.
Okay.
No. Dan Mullen was recently fired, so no. I can confirm that M-Dubs. Listen, there's some people that are up in arms. Namely, you want to talk about a man that's kept his position for a long time, having nothing to show for it, no brain cells to show for it. Can we talk about Shannon Sharpe for a second, Clint?
Let's talk about the regurgitation of idiocy, Daniel. Just
sure.
Idiotic speech that's continued to perpetuate within Fox Sports, within ESPN, within every single person that's national. This has been our point of national talking heads. They just get a clip of 15 seconds and they edit everything outside of that, and then they react to it because it gets clicks, and they have no clue what they're talking about. Shannon Sharpe in particular, Colin Cowherd's another one. Kirby gets paid, Kirby gets money, Kirby talks NIL, and all of a sudden they're that's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, meme that's got like the red lines everywhere. That's what they turn into, and it's embarrassing, Daniel. So let's talk about Kirby at Media Day for the SEC. He said a lot.
Yes,
a lot, Daniel. But
the
reaction.
Let me just ask you this: Does Kirby Smart hate the NIL?
Kirby Smart got how many players at Georgia that you haven't heard of? You don't know their name. You haven't seen them on the field, and they got some sort of NIL money in their pocket.
95, Clint. Do you want to talk about 11 starters on offense and 11 starters on defense and a couple of kickers and a long snapper, some kick return guys, most of whom are starters on other units as well?
Yep.
95 guys receiving NIL money.
This isn't Jim Harbaugh. Georgia. Okay, this isn't guy this isn't Dabo, who is actively hating on it. This is a man who's using it, who likes it, who's getting his players just what they deserve every single time from this, and he's doing it. Wait for it, all you. Hey, the Hellcats are being, the keys are being taken back. That's not how Kirby's running this. Every single person is running it above board, and they're getting direct to them for their work as the college NCAA and America has allowed. Daniel, he doesn't hate it. He loves it. He uses it.
It's a bigger, you hate to this podcast is about Georgia. It's about sports. It's about
Yes.
Georgia sports in particular. And that's what we've always wanted to talk about. We are real fans. That's who we are. That's sometimes we have takes where we're excited. Sometimes we have takes where we're not excited about things that happen. That's what real fans do. Sometimes they're happy and sometimes they're sad. But it's a bigger point of like the world that we live in right now, Clint. Not to get too high on a soapbox here, but the world that we live in is as such that if you say something negative about my thing,
Yes.
then you hate it. You hate me,
Yep.
and you hate everything I stand for, and you hate
Yep.
everything I believe in because you critiqued my thing. You said one negative thing about it, and therefore you hate it. You're against it. Because the world we live in believes that you have to choose your side. You have to be here or you have to be here. You can't ride down the middle. You can't go back and forth. You have to choose and you have to align and you have to whatever. And so Kirby says some negative things about the NIL, which we're going to get to maybe in the second segment. What are the actual problems that Kirby Smart's pointing out about the NIL? But he also, on record at SEC Media Day, says there's a lot more good than there is bad about the NIL. Okay, that's a person that hates it, right? Okay. He said there's a lot more good than there is bad. He said we got kids paying for their dad's chemotherapy on the NIL, and we got people you've never heard of who are drawing a paycheck, who are earning a living, and we're able to do all of that for our players in a way that's sustainable and can continue on for year after year, class after class, in a way that's ongoing. So he says all that good about the NIL, but he says a couple bad things, and now all of a sudden the national media narrative, and if you're not careful, you just get sucked right into it, is to say, and certainly if you're a Florida fan, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're like, you're just going to grasp at straws at this point because the man, he owns you. And so that's all there is to it. You haven't beaten him since COVID was a thing. So like in the post-COVID world, Alabama's never beaten Georgia at any point. I don't know. COVID ended on December 15th of 2021.
That's right.
You can argue with a wall. I don't care. That's the day that it ended. And so Alabama's never beaten Georgia.
Oh, no, Daniel. We're going to come back after this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of insight of why I think it is that people attack Kirby. Again, it's very, very simple. And we're going to talk about how Kirby is doing this above board. And one thing that everybody hates about him because he's different from everybody else. And it's my hypothesis. But first, I want to learn you about LinkedIn. Daniel, again, I don't know if you've heard of these guys. But
I have not. Tell me more.
Let me educate you.
Because see, here's the thing that I have. I've got these jobs that I'm trying to fill, but I have no idea how.
Well, as the sun comes down on small businesses, as we're talking about post-COVID world, and we're back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster, and wait a second, for free. You get to create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network. You really do. And beyond, to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people, just shy of what Shannon Sharp has made in his career, but he gets to go ahead and belittle other people for what they think about it. But keep on doing your paycheck from Fox Sports with a moron across from you, Shannon.
Sure.
Then you get to add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You know, I just realized, Daniel, we need to get on LinkedIn. We need to find out if there's a Dan Mullen profile on LinkedIn.
He got to be out there just scouring for jobs.
He has to be.
I want to give you a chance to give your hypothesis because There's a lot of, people say a lot of things about Kirby. As you said, you have a theory as to why. Real quick, if we could just do a compare and contrast, and then we'll never talk about Shannon Sharpe on this podcast again. But
praise God. Okay.
I feel as though I've upset some Alabama fans, which we know many loyal, faithful listeners to the podcast, the Alabama fans.
The title has offended them, Daniel.
But they're loyal to us. They love us, and they cannot stay away from us. And so, Alabama fans, I just want to say something we could agree on. Maybe let's just do a little quick compare and contrast. Okay, Kirby Smart has chosen to. You talk about LinkedIn. He's chosen to hitch his professional wagon, as it were, to the likes of Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time.
Yep.
Okay. He is then, since breaking away, doing his own thing at Georgia, chosen to surround himself with people like Dan Lanning, people like Will Muschamp, Glenn Schumann, people like Mel Tucker.
Yep.
People who have gone on to do successful things, people like Sam Pittman, people who have gone on to lead other programs. So you see the professional connections that Nick Saban has made, that Kirby Smart has made in this environment. Compare that to Shannon Sharpe, who for the last 10 years has hitched his professional wagon, Clint, to Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless. You understand? We're talking about Nick Saban, Mel Tucker, Sam Pittman. These are Kirby's colleagues. And your colleague is Skip Bayless. And you want to talk? You want to talk about my coach?
Ooh.
That's what you want to do?
That's rough. That's rough.
I don't know. I don't know.
Here's my hypothesis, Daniel, and I don't know if this is true of everybody, but I think this is actually proving the point of NIL and of what we think of college athletics and what we have thought about these players before, and we're attributing it the same to Kirby. Do you know, Daniel, that last year Kirby made no mention of why an assistant left the program to take care of some personal matters? He just said he's away from the team. Mm-hmm. And that was the end of the soundbite. Okay. Kirby also, he came out and said he contemplated retirement, which we'll get to that quote here in a second as well. Mm-hmm. And everybody was upset because he didn't say it at the time. Eric Gilbert goes away from the program to handle some personal issues. Kirby doesn't say anything other than he's not with the team right now. Here's my hypothesis, and this is what, again, we think these college kids are ours to control, that we are obligated and we must have insight to who they are, what they're doing. And Kirby, we attribute the same thing. He must share with us what he wants to, what we are owed knowing.
He must.
Okay, let me tell you something. We're
nothing. Insiders and gurus, after all. Yeah. We are insiders and gurus. We are owed the information.
No one is owed anything on these kids, on these young adults, on these coaches. And Kirby runs his program very, very, very tight lid. Not a lot gets out. He doesn't offer a lot. He doesn't have coaches offer a lot. He doesn't make available people that we want to make available. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that are going on at Georgia to make a program what it is. And Kirby keeps his business. And you all are upset because you think it's your business. It's not your business. That's his coaches, his players, and they will give you what they want. But that's my hypothesis of why people hate him, like people like Shannon Sharpe, who want to know more. So they just keep poking. They keep going at him and saying, well, this must be true. No, it's not. Just because you don't get to hear from him on a daily basis, just because you don't get to read the text threads, just because you think somebody like Urban Meyer keeps something a secret and deletes chats and deletes text messages to hide a known women abuser, that's Urban Meyer. That's not Kirby. Now, we should find that out. Kirby is doing things that are right and are good and are helping these kids. And just because you need more information doesn't mean that's my hypothesis why people hate him, because he runs a ship that is tighter lid than any other ship in college football.
Yeah, I mean, the word that comes to mind, and look, there are no Georgia fans who are anti-Kirby Smart anymore.
None.
I mean, there can't be. We've heard a lot. We've heard a lot. There can't be.
Don't dare them. Please don't dare them.
There cannot be.
Okay.
But Kirby offers you, and again, we believe that there should be a statue of Mark Richt in Athens. That is the official position of the Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
Yes.
Build a statue.
Yep.
Kirby offers you the best of Nick Saban and Mark Richt. Do you understand? Like, with Kirby, you get all the winning, all the championships. And you get the word that comes to mind as you're describing the way that he runs his program, Clint, is it's family. That's the way he runs his the way that you would run your family. Let me just ask you, if you have children, or you maybe plan to have children, or you can remember what it was like to be a child, and people are asking you, demanding information about your children, are you going to be real quick to give out all that information? Well, not if you're worth it. Like, there are parents who do that, by the way, who just sell their kids down the river to profit off of them.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yep.
That's not the way Kirby runs the program. It's not the way that any good parent would run the family. And so he doesn't care. Just like as a dad, I don't care what you think you want. I'm going to give you what I want you to have when it comes to my children, and that's it. And so, again, I know that these are adults; these are not kids. That's not the analogy that I'm trying to make. The analogy that I'm trying to make is that Kirby runs his program the way that you would want somebody to run a family, which is that he cares about the people in the house much more than he cares about the people outside the house.
That's really unique because, again, people have tried to trip Kirby up by asking him, hey, did you hear what so-and-so said? And his answer unequivocally, and I believe him, he says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And
no, I did not.
Even if I did, I have no remark on it. Are they here? Are they wearing red and black with me? They're not? Then why am I talking about them?
Yeah, and that's look, Kirby's got some things to say about the NIL. And I want to talk in the third segment about what Kirby thinks is wrong with the NIL, what he really said is wrong with the NIL. And then you can decide for yourself if you think that that's wrong with the NIL. We'll maybe give you our opinion of whether or not we think it's wrong. So we'll talk about that. But Kirby's not anti-NIL.
No.
To your point, Kirby is anti everyone not Georgia. Kirby cares about Georgia.
He don't discriminate.
And he didn't care about Georgia fans even necessarily all that much. He cares about the people that are his direct reports. And that's what you want from your head football coach, I can unequivocally say. And that's why he's the highest paid college football coach in America, deservingly so. And that's why every football program on God's green earth would trade their head coach today for Kirby Smart. Every single one of them.
Yep.
And I haven't heard a single Alabama fan argue me about that. And I've said it a lot on the podcast, and they argue almost everything I say.
Literally everything else.
But I've never heard one have the stones to tell me they would keep the old decrepit Nick Saban, who's never won a championship in his 70s.
Nope.
And not take Kirby Smart, because it's not true. Everyone would take Kirby Smart. All right, let's talk about what's really wrong with the NIL, what Kirby thinks is really wrong with it right after this. All right, Clint.
Daniel, you teased. What did Kirby actually say? Because it's really important to go ahead and get facts out there instead of hot takes. So,
well, I don't know. I do love the hot takes. I did say Alabama hasn't beaten Georgia since COVID.
Well, that was tongue in cheek. That was wink wink. But what he actually said at media days, Daniel.
What he actually said was that there's two kinds of NIL. And listen, I'm going to boil it down. I'm going to make it as simple and as understandable as possible.
Talk to me. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah, your mom and daddy give you money for a lemonade stand.
Okay.
Okay. There's two kinds of NIL, Clint.
Yep.
There's the type of NIL where college athletes are paid for their name, image, or likeness
That's wild.
to be used based on the athlete's popularity in the place where the money is coming from. That is one type of NIL. Unfortunately, it's the only type of NIL that was ever intended to be used. But the problem is that when you introduce this system where college athletes can be paid based on their name, image, and likeness, then you start to ask yourself, well, when does a college athlete become a college athlete? Well, a college athlete, I guess, could become a college athlete when they step on campus, or they could become a college athlete when they commit to a school, or maybe they could be a college athlete before they even commit to a school. And so the second type of NIL is where a high school kid who has, now listen, because I want to say it like you're five, who has never done anything in college football ever, who has no accolades, nothing. They've not gone through a practice. They've not put on a jersey. They've never made a tackle, a completion, a yard. They've never done anything in college football. And they are paid in order to lure them into a stranger's van. And by a stranger's van, I mean to College Station, Texas, which
The
if you've never
strangest of
been,
all fans.
go into a stranger's van and then go to College Station and tell me which you'd prefer to be in. Okay. So that's the two types of NIL. And Kirby simply came out and said, one of those seems legitimate, and one of those seems pretty dangerous, irresponsible, and sketchy as all get out.
Yeah, this is you remember the Seinfeld episode where George is trying to get fired to go
I do.
work for the Mets
I
in the
do.
front
He
office
puts on the
position?
Yankees jersey. He puts on the Babe Ruth jersey.
That's right.
Eats
That's
the,
right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's the promise of the lure of no, we can't talk about this. We can't. We're not talking about this. But if
Yes.
you were to become available,
Mhm.
that's what Jimbo does to
It's a
play.
wink, wink, nudge. It's
That's exactly right.
And listen, here's two things. Number one, based on the letter of the law of the way that the NIL situation is worded or whatever the powers to be, based on the way that the system is currently set up, there is nothing illegal about what Jimbo does. There's nothing outside of the rules about this. And Kirby knows that. And
Yep.
listen, I'm not saying this man is acting selflessly, because he's not. Listen, third segment listeners, you'll hear me say this. Kirby's acting in his own best interest. Because guess who doesn't need help getting 5-star kids to commit to his school? It's Kirby.
It's Kirby.
Guess who does need help?
All the help
It's
he can
Steve
get.
Sarkisian. That's who needs help. These are the people. So Kirby's getting screwed off this NIL because in terms of recruiting, he doesn't need it. Now, all the kids at Georgia are getting paid, and some of them are getting paid a really large sum of money. Guys like Keely
Yes.
Ringo and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter next year. Just watch out for when those numbers start coming in. Watch out for when you start hearing about Jalen Carter's numbers
He's gonna
in
break
the
some bank.
NIL next year. Okay? So Georgia players are getting paid. The issue is that Texas A&M players are getting paid before they even go to Texas A&M. And that's the only reason they're going to Texas A&M. And if you need more proof that that's what's happening in college football, look at this Quinn Ewers kid who is the savior of Texas University of Texas football.
Uh-oh.
Who who went to Ohio State, took his $1 million and then left.
And took off.
Because that's what Kirby is saying is wrong with the NIL. And you make your decision for yourself. You can decide that that's not wrong. I personally think that's probably not the best system long term for college football to have that happening. Now, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't think Kirby particularly cares whether you disagree with him or not, but that is the opinion he stated. It has nothing to do with hating the NIL because, again, there are two types of NIL, and Kirby's doing very well at the one type, and Kirby doesn't really need the other type. And also, the other type has nothing to do with profiting off of your name, image, and likeness as a college athlete.
Yeah, it's kind of like the guy, the contractor you have come in and you're like, hey, if I pay you in all cash so that you don't have to report things to the IRS and you can get around, will you give me a discount? And the contractor's like, no. Don't get mad at the contractor because he's running his business as he should.
Mm-hmm.
You asked him and he said no. Kirby is saying no to one. And he's saying, yes, let me, as I see fit, for the health of a long-term sustained 10-year tenure program. I want to be here. Jimbo Fisher don't care if he's at A&M in 3-4 years. He doesn't care. Let me tell you. He is looking at Nick Saban roll out in mummified form, hoping Alabama gives him a call. Everybody.
Oh, Lord in heaven.
Could you
Alabama fans, please in the comments, please tell me how you would feel if
oh my gosh, I need this to happen so much.
Oh my word.
We're
gonna
come
start
back.
A second podcast just making fun of Alabama at that point. Like it would be a second show.
It would be a full-time job. We're going to go back tomorrow, talk more Media Day quotes that happened, and we're going to give our take on all of them. This has been Locked On Bulldogs here on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.